This time on Pod Don't Kill Us.
The Dungeons & Dragons movie has just released.
There are a lot of bisexuals. This is the official description.
There is an official D&D virtual tabletop coming.
And there's going to be the Book of Many Things, which is about the lore of the Deck of Many Things.
Bigby presents Glory of the Giants.
It's Pod Don't Kill Us, talking about D&D for a long time.
Welcome!
Hey!
Welcome to Pod Don't Kill Us, where two nerds get what they deserve for talking about D&D for far too long.
Yeah! My name is Eric Wiegand. I'm the Dungeon Master for Please Don't Kill Us live D&D campaign going on right now called Spelljammer Light of Xerxes.
And I am Jack Dentinger. I am the chief story consultant for anything Please Don't Kill Us. Overall, we've been talking about Spelljammer and everything else.
We are here in the cellar or the tavern of Farbles. Yes. The Scourge of the Bog is kindly letting us use her space because our beloved family and friends have kicked us out of our homes for talking about D&D too much.
That's right.
And so that's what we're here to do today.
Yes, and this is a particularly insufferable week for those friends and family of ours because the Dungeons & Dragons movie has just released. And as D&D nerds would do, we watched it like a couple of DMs and actually have quite a few lessons that we think we can take away as Dungeon Masters from it. So we're going to be breaking that down a little bit later. But
if
first,
there's anything Dungeon Masters are good at, it's turning storytelling into homework.
That's right. That's right. And then talking about it for 7 hours straight.
Yep. But first off, we start each episode of Pod Don't Kill Us with Brews News. Bum bum. Law and Order. Brews News is the section where we have, I think it's 10 minutes. Farbles, is that right? 10 minutes. It was 6 for a second, but now it's 10. 6, yeah. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to talk about just the latest in tabletop gaming news. And at any given point during that, we might be handed a brew that we have to chug in that moment, and the other person has to pick up where the other person left off.
That's right.
Yeah. Brews News.
The world of tabletop gaming is wide, it's enormous, and there's so many things besides Dungeons & Dragons, even though that's what occupies our brains so much of the time. So I wanted to start off Brews News by spotlighting a couple of really cool indie RPG things that are happening in the world. In the recent times, an amazing company called Possum Creek released their RPG called Yezeba's Bed and Breakfast. This is something you can buy in book form, but it's also something that now, as of just a few days ago, is released in online form, Yezeba's Online, which is... it seems amazing. It's kind of a mix of different things. It's a social RPG that you can play online with your friends. Players can drop in and out. There's no game master during it, and it's a mix of 3 different things for all intents and purposes. 1, tabletop RPG. You get to play your own character in this world of a bed and breakfast. It's amazing. It's like very kind of witchy vibes. It's always September 15th. It's always autumn. And you're kind of just living your life as different characters. You get to customize your character, narrate their actions. The other thing it is a legacy board game where you're going to be, as you're playing more roughly 1 hour sessions, you're going to be unlocking new chapters, new characters, new secrets in this world with your friends playing online. And then the other thing is this is an MMO RPG, a massively multiplayer online RPG where you're going to see like pixelated art, beautifully rendered pixelated art of your characters and the different goings on in this bed and breakfast.
Peek behind the screen here for a second. I didn't read that until now. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That sounds so cool.
It sounds so fun. I'm so excited to pick it up. Possum Creek is incredible. There are other games, among others, are Sleepaway, which is kind of a horror-ish RPG taking place at a sleepaway camp where you play counselors, and another is Wander Home, which is their most recent, or one of their most recent and extremely successful RPG, which is super red wall, anthropomorphic animals vibes. Just incredible RPGs out there.
Anthropomorphic animals? It's a talking fish!
Hey Jessica, what's happening with this talking fish?
Hey, sorry you guys. Well, I just caught this.
Oh!
And I found out that it's... Sorry, I need to get down.
It's your basement, Jessica.
Yeah, well, I found that it was perfect to carry a little beer in.
Oh.
So... This is for Eric.
Oh.
And,
Do I have an opener?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Farbles.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make the fish's mouth. That would be incredible as an opener. What
Whoa.
do you say?
Oh, that would be great.
But it doesn't work right now.
I'll go upgrade it.
It'll happen.
All right.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm gonna. That's all about Yezeba's, but Jack, it's up to you. Pick it up.
Yes, absolutely. So the next thing we're going to spotlight is Visigoths versus Mall Goths. And you heard that right, that's Mall Goths by Lucian Khan, which is a tabletop role-playing game and kind of a dating sim about the conflicts and romances among the warriors.
Dating sim? Mwah! The fish would like to date Jack Tentinger right now with another beer. And Eric, you better finish quick because... Eric, you better finish quick because Jack's got a beer to drink. Well, I'll see you later.
Oh my God. Okay, 1 second.
Are you good? Because it is ancient Rome, who sacked ancient Rome in 20th century spooky teens. That's where I left off.
I'm going to go from the beginning of the description. Visigoths and Molgoths is a tabletop role-playing game. It's a dating sim. Conflicts and romances among the warriors who sacked ancient Rome in 20th century spooky teens set in a suburban Los Angeles shopping mall during 1996. There are a lot of bisexuals. This is the official description. Imagine a surreal combo of The Craft, Empire Records, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Clueless. I'm spotlighting this just because I read it recently. I read through the whole thing on a plane ride just a few days ago. And I fell in love with it. I'm so excited to play it at some point with the Please Don't Kill Us people, just because I think it's so perfect. It's like team versus team. It's a little battle royale in that sense, but it's like romancing. The fighting is only, like if you fight, you only take emotional damage. You only get embarrassment damage, and it's just the vibes are so good. I'm really excited to check it out in an actual play scenario, but just reading it was incredible. So definitely check that out. Visigoths versus Molgoths by Lucian Khan. And after that, how are you feeling?
Fantastic.
Amazing. I'm afraid of how much time we have.
Yep.
So we're going to go to D&D Direct.
That's right. So there was a recent D&D Direct. You probably have already watched it. If you haven't, it is cool to check out. But a couple of things that were announced as a result of it. There is an official D&D virtual tabletop coming. So if you're a fan of Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds or any of the other amazing VTTs that are out there, check this one out. It looks like they're doing some pretty cool stuff with it.
It looks like they're doing some pretty cool stuff with it. I think that something I'm concerned about is, like, I don't know, it would just be cool to keep an eye on it in terms of, like, licensing agreements with, like, Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds is a little terrifying because it's like, these are companies that are not officially attached to D&D. They just have an agreement with them where they're able to use their content. And just the hope is that D&D's not going to corner the market. Like, obviously, if they make something amazing and a lot of people want to use it, that's incredible. The more the merrier. Yeah. But it's a little scary if, say, they're not getting as many users as they want, and they say, okay, we're going to pull our licensing agreements with Roll20 and shit. Then it's like, fuck you.
Yeah, that is a huge thing to, especially given the year we've had when it comes to licensing with Wizards. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
And as well, I also think, like, from just like a philosophy of the game standpoint, I feel like I always wonder with VTT, like, what are we trying to replicate here? When do we take that too far and it starts to, like, intercept with the spirit of what D&D around the table feels like? And I think that I think it's definitely worth checking out, but I think some of the stuff I saw in there, I had that question too of, like, what is this still the game that we love in that way? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think as far as, like, accessibility, I think it's a really exciting thing. Like, VTTs are so exciting in terms of, like, playing with friends who don't live in the same city or anything like that.
Like me and him.
Like us. Yeah. But I just think that it's like, keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially when Hasbro owns it. Keep an eye on it. Other things are, there's a bunch of upcoming books that are in the works. No! Is it another one?
You guys can share it. Half and half. Eric first.
Okay.
Is it another cider?
Yes.
Oh.
We're not supposed to question Jessica.
No, Jessica,
you let us
doing
be
us
here.
a favor by letting us be here.
So there are a couple of upcoming D&D official books that are worth checking out as well. Bigby presents Glory of the Giants, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, while you're chugging, is a source book essentially centered around the famed mythical D&D character Bigby, and sort of exploring deeper into, like, sort of the culture and history and everything about giants in the game. It is, which if you're interested in that now, Storm King's Thunder is an adventure that goes somewhere, some detail into that, things about the ordning and such. So definitely worth checking out. Another one we've talked about before, but we have a bit more information about that now. Is Phandelver and Below.
Totally, Phandelver and Below is. You might remember, if you're a D&D head, the starter set has a starter adventure called The Lost Mine of Phandelver, and it's a pretty basic, quick adventure, but this is going to be a full hardback campaign book that expands the Phandelver adventure, having to deal with these obelisks that... Man, if you're in too deep with D&D lore, then you know that there's been an obelisk in each adventure they've released in 5th edition, and they're going to come together in a storytelling way. This is going to have to do the obelisks. Jack, how do you feel about this, since you've already homebrewed basically this exact same thing?
Yeah, this was pretty shocking to me. One of the games that I'm running right now is kind of a mashup of Dragon of Spire Peak, Lost Mine of Phandelver, and several other D&D hardbacks, and the one of the connecting links is the fact of the obelisks and how they connect to things like spoilers. I would say skip 10 seconds ahead if you don't want to know about this. How they connect to Netheril and Vecna and those sorts of like D&D lore things that it feels like we're approaching like an event in the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was funny because when you homebrew something, you do quite a bit of work to make it all fit together, and you feel like you're also making something original. And in this case,
you're like, I'm a genius.
And when this comes out, it's going to be like, I did all the work before it came out, and now I'm no longer original.
Yeah, and when you tell the story to people, they'll be like, oh yeah, the hardback, you just did it out of the book.
That's right, and it'll feel awesome.
Yep.
But it is exciting. I actually am really excited to see what they've
Totally, it's going to be so good. Next thing is Planescape, which is a classic D&D setting. Very multiverse, very like all the different... Sorry, multiverse fatigue. All the different planes of existence coming together in a city named Sigil, City of Doors. And it seems like this might be a setting book, not a campaign book, which would be exciting. And it's setting up for the next year, 2024, where Vecna will be a big part of the lore, and a huge adventure will surround Vecna. These are the announcements. These are what we've learned from D&D Direct. In addition, there's going to be the Book of Many Things, which is about the lore of the Deck of Many Things. I don't know how that'll fill a book, but you seem excited about it.
I'm excited about it only because I kind of love the Deck of Many Things. If you don't know what the Deck of Many Things is, it's a famous, incredibly chaotic magic item that is like known for like destroying campaigns or just completely wrecking the balance of something, and it can definitely do those things. I think if you are ever considering using it, think about it. Think about it hard. But it is a famous magic item. It's very cool, and this book is going to explore the story behind it, which is kind of an exciting thing because it's one of those weird, anachronistic, it's been around in the game for a long time, and it does have a kind of like, how the heck did this thing ever even come to be in the first place? So take a look at that. It's going to be kind of cool.
I'll be interested. I'll be reading Jack's copy of that book.
That's right.
And so, as previously stated, the next kind of huge campaign adventure in 2024 will be the Vecna campaign, which... Come on, I'm in.
Yeah, come on.
That sounds incredible. It's going to be huge, kind of world-changing. It's going to bring together all the whole multiverse. And then after that, they've teased that there's going to be an adventure about the Red Wizards of Thay, which is the main villains in the new Dungeons & Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves, which we did see at Nighthawk, Prospect Park in Brooklyn. Great theater, check it out.
The whole PDKU cast went together. It was so much fun.
We all went together. Everyone was super hype. Some people after the movie ended very clearly looked over their shoulder at the group of us and were like, you guys had a good time, didn't you?
Yeah, and then we slipped our Instagram handle into all the tables.
Yeah.
We didn't do that.
We did not do that. But we had an amazing time, and we couldn't help but think about all the ways that you can learn as a DM from it, and how the movie itself, like, our review of it is like, I don't know, my reviews, I loved it. I thought it was excellent.
And in the way of like it managed to like tell a story within its own world, right, without ever properly like breaking or winking or anything, that still also kept the spirit of what D&D feels like to play alive in all of its absolute campy absurdity. There was an incredible feeling to watch like what felt like a team of people like take what we love about it, right? And what we love about it in terms of the spirit, the result of the game. Yeah. Like less about the game itself.
It's like a perfect combo of like it is very earnest and very full of heart in terms of like it's not like fucking around with like telling an emotional story. It's trying to tell an emotional story, but also Chris Pine's character is named Edgin, and it's spelled like Edgin. And
Which
there's
I didn't realize until this
another
morning.
character named Jarnathan, like, which is the most D&D thing ever. Like, it's all very like stupid jokes that you would make and annoy the DM, you know.
And with that, let's take it to the next section. We've made something of a Faustian bargain with Farbles the Bog Witch here. We are allowed to talk about D&D for as long as we want, but we, in order to pay our penance, we have to be subjected to a mystery challenge.
And Farbles collects her price in all sorts of different ways, and Farbles often looks to the outside, to the killers out there, to decide what she's going to require from us on any given day. So on our Please Don't Kill Us socials, we've been out there, Farbles has been out there getting suggestions or votes on what's going to happen to us and to whom. Neither of us have a clue about what's going to happen to us as we go into our discussion section.
It's time for the challenge, not the reality TV show kind.
Imagine.
Y'all, are you down there in the cellar?
I forgot.
Yes,
Yeah, we're here,
Farbles.
Farbles.
Yeah, I'm coming down. Is that okay? I'm
Yeah,
only
of
in my
course.
moo-moo.
That's
okay.
fine, Farbles.
That's fine.
All right, hi,
Hey,
Scoot around.
Yeah, uh-huh.
No, scoot it this way, baby.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you know. Thank you. Sorry, I'm gonna get right between you two. Oh, I love you. Oh, like my sons, my little weird, nerdy, little loud sons.
Thanks, Farbles.
I love you both, but I'm in a little bit of a pickle. Yeah, so see, I hired some people for to entertain the folks in the tavern upstairs. No shows. They were fire poi dancers, right? And no shows. I think they are off on tour or something. But I'm in need of some entertainment now for my folks upstairs, right? So I picked out my favorite song for you to lip sync for your life against each other, all right?
Against each
For
other.
both, it's both of us.
Oh yeah, everything.
Wait.
Yeah, both of y'all have to do it. You know, life is a competition, so I will be declaring a winner,
Okay.
and that winner will sleep indoors. The other one is sleeping outside. 2 nerds stand before me. 3, 2, 1, go. Good.
I don't know.
Well, MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on his farm he had a cow, E-I-E-I-O. With a here
Approximately 10 hours later.
here and a there, here, there, everywhere. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O.
Oh my God, y'all! Y'all, clap for him. That was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic. The person who's going to be sleeping indoors tonight, warm and cozy in their cot, is Mr. Jack Dettinger.
Thank you, Farbles.
Oh, you're welcome, sweetie. I love you like a son. You're sleeping in the bog. Bye, I love you.
Thank you,
baby.
Farbles.
Thanks, Farbles.
I love
Thank
you.
you, Farbles.
All right, y'all.
Well,
Awesome.
very good.
You waited long enough. Time for the main topic. Bum, bum. Bum.
We're gonna go through give you a summary of the movie. If you haven't seen it yet, the spoilers definitely ahead. So take a pause, go watch it, come back, hang out with us.
100%.
So we imagine that the D&D movie probably breaks up into 6 sessions. And we're going to sort of go through those as a bit of a summary. So the first session starts in Revel's End with Edgin and Holga, who are both there and who are imprisoned at the moment. We learn a bit about their backstory. We learn a bit about Edgin's daughter and essentially Holga's like surrogate daughter and Kira, and the way that they lost her when they tried to break into that keep and then got imprisoned, right?
Totally.
And so we imagine that the first session that would translate from the D&D movie is beginning with them in Revel's End through to their appealing to the group of sort of like council people who are there, Jarnathan, etc. Breaking out, learning about Castle Never and their old friend who's now the Lord of Neverwinter, going to Castle Never, discovering that he's turned their daughter against them, kicking them out, and then essentially deciding to go on the heist. So the first session is a lot of backstory, a lot of setup, and essentially the hook of the adventure, which is how are we going to get into the vault in Castle Never.
Totally. And the second session, I was feeling totally sober after the old McDonald lip sync, and now I'm back into the cider. Yeah. Session 2, the group meets a week later, and they meet up for session 2, which is starting with going around and recruiting Simon and Doric, the sorcerer and the druid, and searching for the helm that they need for the heist in the old graveyard, where they do speak with dead about 1,000 times, and then meeting Zank, who we think is a DM PC, a Dungeon Master, absolutely. Player character, and then probably an end stinger about going into the Underdark, a little cliffhanger for that next leg of the adventure.
That's right. And so we're imagining then session 3, after 2 sessions of not a lot of like combat or really action, but a lot of setup and a lot of cool stuff happening. Session 3 is the adventure in the Underdark. Is they head down there, they sneak past the Intellect Devourers, they fight the Thane Assassins, they go up against the chunkiest dragon you've ever seen, and that session's going to end with them. They have the Helm of Displacement. Is that what it's called? Mordenkainen's something like disfigurement.
That. Yeah, whatever it is.
Not Mordenkainen's disfigurement. Right. But they, and then escaping from the cave, out from the explosion, and kind of arriving at the beach at the end of session 3 of 6.
Absolutely. The next week, the group gets together for session 4, where the DM says, my DMPC is out of here. Zank leaves. We do the helmet attunements, which the DM was probably expecting the person to succeed, and
absolutely.
They fail on it. Justice Smith's character fails the attunement, and so they make a new plan with the carriage heist, getting in and failing. They get into both vaults. They discover the truth about what's happening with the riches, where they're being stolen by Hugh Grant, and everyone gets captured. And the session ends with Edgin persuading the Red Wizard and Hugh Grant to get into the arena for another shot.
That's right. So the end stinger of 4 is they're in the arena, and that's where we pick up with 5. We have the arena battle, we have the maze, we have the displacer beast, we have the gelatinous cube, the mimic, and all the other chests and things that are all about the maze. We have them escaping through the gelatinous cube, getting down down below, finding the ship, confronting Forge, turning Kira back to their side, and getting away, and essentially succeeding on the heist. But then the end stinger is the party realizing that the big bad all along has been planning something far more nefarious. And we end out at sea, turning around, seeing all that dark, shadowy cloud, ready to create an army of undead at the end of episode 5 of 6.
Absolutely. And it ends finally with session 6, which is kind of the, the finale after the finale. This where they go back to the town. They figure it out with their staff of hither-thither to make the balloon drop all the riches on the town. They get in there and they have the fight with the Red Wizard, Seraphina, the final boss, and the end of the adventure with the little hook for a longer campaign of the Red Wizards of Thay being the big, big bad. And I think, what's magic about the movie is that, like, it feels like that. It feels like a campaign. It feels like a very, like, where the twists and turns of campaign would go. And with that, we have all these lessons that we think that you could glean from it in terms of dungeon mastering, in terms of what this DM does right, what's on their mind in this movie.
Yeah. And it's like a great way of thinking, like, DM lessons can come from literally anywhere. And so starting from the beginning, there's something about the scene of them breaking out of Revel's End, but also the Revel's End, is that what it's called?
Revel's End. Yeah.
Revel's End is the prison, yeah. But thinking about, like, that whole section that's kind of a funny gag in the movie where they're talking about backstory, like, he's like, this is a really important part of my backstory, and Jonathan's not here to hear it, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. A lesson from there that I think is a great thing for DMs is the way that they tie the backstory of both Holga and Edgin to the plot of the adventure itself. Like, if you look at what was the adventure on paper before characters become involved is probably a heist with then like a secret Thayan plot below it, right? But you have this character who comes in with this whole plot with the daughter and the dead wife and then Holga and the two of them together becoming best friends and becoming a surrogate mom and all of those things that the DM goes, okay, I'm gonna weave the fact of that into the adventure. So the tablet of reawakening and the daughter being tied to the person who has the vault, those are all tactics that the DM is using to tie that player's backstory into the action of the adventure so that there is an automatic hook in there for the person already. They start the session already wanting to get Kira and get the tablet, which is a great tactic if you're ever worried about how you're going to hook your players. You just work their backstory directly into the adventure.
Yeah, I mean, think about like all the hardbacks of D&D that are kind of like, all the hooks basically are like, adventurers generally want to do these things.
Right.
Like, they want to save the world, probably. They want to get rich, probably. And it makes it so much more personal, so much more heartfelt in a D&D session if it is tying in those different backstories and changing the adventure to fit that, which I think feeds into the next one, which is when they're thinking about getting to Castle Never. Why they do that? First of all, their plan, Edgin and Holga, is to go to Baldur's Gate and literally just walk up the Sword Coast, going from place to place to place to place to find Chris Pine's daughter. And the DM basically says, no, we're not going to do that. As much as as much as I respect player agency, here's a piece of paper with Hugh Grant's face on it right away to tell you, go to Neverwinter, that's where the adventure is. Which is what happens in the movie. They get this thing and they learn that Hugh Grant is the new Lord of Neverwinter.
Yeah, that one really felt like an Easter egg for DMs. Like, if not, a DM would probably not notice that, but you go like, oh my god, are the players really going to spend 2 weeks on a ship and then walk up the coast? Absolutely not. And they didn't talk to anyone to find out that their old friend is the leader. Like, It's just like, here you go.
The DM being like, I'm not going to improvise like 1,000 towns on your walk. And I think also the Hugh Grant thing is like part of... It feels like if this were like a hardback like 5e book and it was like a Neverwinter adventure, I feel like the Lord that would be like running these games, that they would do the heist, would be Lord Neverember, who is like the canon Lord of Neverwinter. Yeah. And the fun thing that the DM does in this movie is be like, no, it's someone you know. Right. It's someone you know, it's someone you care about, and who you have a backstory with. And so it's Hugh Grant instead of random Lord Neverember.
Absolutely. And even on that, like, then using that character from the backstory to also tie into the threat that's behind your old friend of Seraphina, being there, like, there's rumors that she's the one that knocked him out. Like, all that kind of stuff is just great way to tie it in. And then the next thing we're talking about is now skipping a little bit ahead to when they go and recruit Zank, who is the paladin from Thay, who's actually like a good hero and is way more powerful than anyone in the party. And it struck us because the question with a DMPC is always like, well, why would you add? And a DMPC, by the way, is a DM player character, so like someone that the DM fully adds to the adventuring party for any amount of time, right? And there's like a lot of criticism for it because the idea that a DM would like be using that to like guide the players or take away their agency, but there are also incredible reasons to use a DMPC that really give they really do sort of help propel the adventure in a way that feels organic. And I think that the question with when they recruit Zank is like how you bring him in. How do you use this DMPC to serve the players without taking over the story?
Yeah,
and
it's like a fine line that you have to walk with it. I think I think the fun joke of the movie is that it's like it kind of veers into the DM being a little too overpowered with the PC. So maybe the lesson of it is that in the next session, the DM is like, and he's out of here because I didn't realize how much, because the assassins come and he just wipes them out. But he's able to guide them along in a way where it's like the DM just needs in this moment to be able to say like, hey, here's where the thing you need is. Here's where you need to get to.
Right. And uses it for other purposes too, right? It goes like, here's the artifact you're trying to get to. It also pushes one of your characters toward a noble piece of their backstory, right?
Totally,
He's always like think you're a harper. Think about the fact that you're a harper.
Yeah.
Make a pledge that's on your harper oath. Your oath hasn't forgotten you. All that stuff. And then also it uses it to get some much needed exposition about Thay, in a way that also kind of feels organic, because we have people who don't trust Thayans, and he's a Thayan, and so we have a human from the evil place, and in a way that later on, what that ripple effects to is gives us as the audience, or gives the players a sense of a wider threat that adds stakes to the current threat, right? Adds stakes to Seraphina and her plot, but without bringing in a world-ending threat for these heroes that obviously aren't strong enough to fight it. Right?
Yeah. Have you done like a DMPC in your campaigns? Have you had like a character that's following the party around?
That's a good question. Yeah, definitely. I've reused one which if you've ever played in a game with me, Welby, I've used in almost, which is a player character I used to play a long time ago, but I always use as someone who, and it's also as a cleric who's like built to be a support class and is like typically there as like someone with a really obvious code and who can like sort of usher along kind of a thing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's probably a good call as far as DMPCs. I think that's kind of the fun of the movie is that like this DMPC is Zank, the Reggae Jean Paul character, is like not a support character.
Right,
he's
no.
just a
He's a
badass, like an incredible warrior, and so he's got to get out of there. That's what he like basically says to Chris Pine. He's like, "This is your story. No, don't let this be my story."
With the joke being that the one session before where he's fighting 8 Thayan assassins on his own,
kills them
no
all.
one else.
Yeah, and then the DM has to be like, "They're back to life. It can't be stopped by this way." But do you feel like you've had to walk that line or like crossed over in any way in terms of DMPCs helping too much or controlling the story too much?
Definitely. I think it's like if you're using them at all, it's always a question of like I feel like I'm always tiptoeing around them and always trying to like I give them like really low dexterity, so they're rolling low in initiative, things like that. Or pushing pushing ways that they are like, I mean, you the hard thing with them is like they are there to support, so you don't want to like break reality, right, by like making them not helpful enough or like those sorts of things. But at the same time, they like you also you don't want them to do too much or be the thing that heals you when you go down or that kind of a thing. So I just think they're hard. I have a hard time with them, to be honest. What about you?
There's just a tricky line. Yeah, I think I feel like and anyone who played in Curse of Strahd that I brought in a character in our Curse of Strahd campaign that was there to lead you to like a specific place, and I used a certain stat block that has like a poison mechanic that I used like on the first time I played, and I was like, oh shit, that's way too much. Like that was a one-use poison mechanic and will never be used again sort of deal. But also my thing with DMPCs is whenever I make a DMPC, the players just rag on them. Hate them because I'm bad at remembering to play them well, remembering what their stats do and everything. So it's I think they can be helpful, and I like you want them to get to the fun part of the story, so it can be helpful to have a general pointer going there. And
it does, and in this case, like, this is a good example of, like, you get out with them, too.
Yeah, right.
Right, because you don't want them to feel like they're overpowering the players, and you don't want them to feel like they're a lag behind.
Yeah.
Right, and the players will feel both of those things, especially over time.
Yeah.
So it's like, get them, serve a function, and move on.
I think that's
Absolutely.
right. Moving on to the next part of the movie that I think has a DM lesson is in the Underdark extraction. They go down to the Underdark, they get this helmet, they fight the Thayan assassins, and then there's a big chunky boy, Thembershad, the red dragon, is down there. And they have a big kind of like runaway from this dragon scene, basically unkillable dragon, it seems like, at least at their level. And the lesson that's gleaned here a little bit is it seems like there's sort of DM flavor text where it's just kind of like a passing description of this dragon, where it's like this dragon's such a big heckin' boy that he like tries to cast the breath weapon, but sometimes it just comes out as like gas, this kind of gas coming out, almost like a gas leak coming out of the mouth. And later, when the players accidentally go the wrong way and don't find the exit, they get trapped in a cave and water's filling up and it's looking like it's about to be a TPK. The players remember that flavor text and have a moment of the most classic D&D inspiration, which is when players think of something that the DM never would have thought of, and the DM says, hell yeah, let's go with that. Where the players realize, you said before that sometimes when the dragon uses his breath weapon, only gas comes out. What if we go underwater, I light my finger on fire, and we do a gas explosion to explode this cave and escape? And it's like, it's beyond belief, but it's just like, it's cool. And it's using something that the DM was just passing mention. Right. So the DM lesson would be, as a DM, roll with that. Like that's a fun thing to throw in there.
And that like the true, like what's true in a D&D session is only what's said.
Yes.
So like not even the dice rolls, right? I mean, the dice rolls are like, the mechanics are important, the rules are super important, but what's true in the story is only what's spoken.
Yeah.
And so like in this case, you go like, oh, this is a group of like, maybe 5th level adventurers, right? And they're going up against what is clearly like an old dragon, maybe adult or ancient. And so the DM goes, okay, the way to nerf that is to go like, is it like he's so chonky that he can't breathe fire,
right?
And so like it's probably coming from a nerf that then is like a flavor text, but the flavor text is true, and if the players are building creativity based on anything that you spoke, that's not something to be like, but the rules, you go like instead you go like, oh, that is true because I said it was true, and so your creativity is the thing that matters the most.
Yes, 100%.
Which is such a cool reminder always as a DM that yeah,
absolutely.
Everything, the rules, mechanics, everything is a support for what is spoken in the game. Yeah. And then, so the next thing is we come to the moment where we're on the beach and Simon can't attune to the helm. And it's the thing of, we joked a minute ago about how which is probably like a failed skill check, right? Where like we go like, okay, we don't just want to be able to attune to this legendary item when this sorcerer is so low level, meaning, and like we're building a piece of their arc, and we the whole confidence thing, and so it's like but at the same time, right? Like so you add a roll to it, right? And then so there's a skill check, the character fails the check. Instead of just going like, all right, you fail the check, you don't do the thing, right? You watch the DM there go like, build something in that feels like sort of maybe it's not built into the description of the magic item, right? But it becomes a character moment of, I am facing a part of me that isn't ready for this yet, or isn't good enough for it yet, or hasn't learned the thing I need to learn to do it yet. And that becomes the whole thing of him talking to his ancestor that rolls later in the whole story when it becomes himself that he's facing.
I think it just ties into like one of my favorite bits of DM advice. I'm not coining it all, but it's just like, what can suck as a player is like if you're a barbarian and you fail an attack roll and the DM is like, you whiff it and like, oh, you didn't do it, and then it's like, well, I don't feel like Holga, like I don't feel like this character because like I guess I'm weak and I thought this character was strong, where it's like the correct thing to do as a DM there, like with this sorcerer who's trying to attune this item and fails a check that maybe the DM thought they were going to succeed on, is how do you bend that energy to make it part of this character's story? So rather than like, especially like with a strong character missing an attack, they didn't miss, they didn't whiff. It's just a parry. It's something else. It's something that the enemy is doing. It's something that just goes in line with like, well, of course, it's a fight scene, and so I'm having an epic, like, clang of the sword against a shield, and, like, even, like, or your strength, you overdid it because you were so strong. Something that just is in line with the character, where with this, it's the sorcerer character, played by Justice Smith, is being held back by his own doubts of himself, that sort of thing. And so the DM has a moment of inspiration to be like, I'm going to seed this thing that's going to pay off later in another session. That's right. Where it's his own self, older self, telling him he can't do it yet. And kind of having to learn that lesson. It makes for, I like, what is often in a D&D session, of improvised, but like really beautiful kind of full arc.
Yeah, and it's like a thing of like the DM keeping an eye on the character, the potential arc that they could go on, not forcing them to go on it by any means, but like listening to what the character has given you and being ready for successes or failures that character is doing or is attempting over the course of the adventure, and being ready to weave the mechanics into that character's arc.
Yes, so that no matter what happens, it is still telling the story of this character. That like the player wants to go on. Like that's what the players are there for. And it's in reaction to what the player is doing rather than something you are trying to make them do. Right. I'll be honest, I don't know what's on the carriage heist. Why don't you lead us with the carriage? So this is my favorite moment in the movie is when they make the crazy like carriage plan using the hither through their staff to like sneak the thing in, right? And you go like, okay, as a DM, right, what's happening, what we're pretending is happening here is like, oh, the DM is probably planning on that attunement check to work, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is they're going to get to the vault and it's going to be empty and they have to figure it out, etc. And then maybe they join the games because they figure out it's below, whatever, right? Whatever it might have happened. Yeah. In this case, the attunement check fails and everyone, DM included, is in this moment of, oh no, what do we do? The players, and rather than sort of like
the DM finding a way to do their original plan. They kind of leave it to the players for a moment, right? And the players take a magic item that they have, which is essentially about 2 fixed points, right? They hit it through their staff, which is using, I think, an arcane gate spell for those of you playing along at home, and which is like 2 fixed points that you would walk into, enter, etc. And using it on an object that's movable, right? Which, if I'm a DM, I go like, that feels maybe broken. Like there are ways to break the game using that tactic, but instead of going no, the DM kind of rolls with their ridiculous, crazy plan. And as a result, it becomes this like amazing, iconic, creative sequence that's in the movie and a creative sequence that's in the game.
Like might be the most important DM lesson, and also might be the hardest lesson from the story, which is like a trap that like I can fall into as a DM, anyone can fall into as a DM. Like sometimes you just want to be like, here's a very obvious breadcrumb trail to the way I want you to solve this problem, the way I want you to go with this. And that really, I really agree with you, where that feels like a moment where the DM stops themselves from speaking, sits back, lets them figure this out.
That's right.
What crazy plan will they come up with? And then like veering toward the side of letting figuring out how it does work, how this cool thing does work, and like putting problems in their way where like the painting falls over and like that sort of thing, where it's like there's still real issues that they have to deal with, but it's never like a roadblock of like, that's not the way I wanted you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of ties into the next thing, right? Which is like, because the painting falls in the movie, right? And so then the party ends up splitting toward what essentially is the 2 vaults, right? An empty vault and then like the treasure vault below the arena. And you have this moment where like what that obstacle does is kind of give you your cake and letting you eat it, right? Is going like, oh, now the party has split up creatively. We still get to have a moment with the attunement thing, right? The what the adventure wants, which is like a character arc defining success in Simon's attunement to the helm, while also letting the creativity of the painting still stand when they find a way to even get around that obstacle. And doesn't keep saying no, but instead gives them a yes on both ends. And what it becomes is this amazing organic discovery that's based on the character's intuition and ingenuity. In a lot of ways.
It makes me think of 2 things. One is what I was thinking about watching the movie, which is like, it's doing a lot of what, I mean, movies do this in general, but it's also what DM should be trying to do, which is find moments where you can shine the spotlight on a character and be like, you're doing the thing that you're made to do. You're doing the thing that you built this character to do. You're getting to show off those abilities in a really successful way, and they each get to do that. I knew I was going to forget the other points. Give me 1 second to think about this other points.
Absolutely.
Hold for points.
Holding it for
I
points.
remember it. What I remember is that, and it's not even, they all succeed basically in this section, but there's only failure in the sense of like they get into a vault and there's nothing there and they figured something out from that. But I think the lesson that you can glean from that in terms of like when a player character fails at something is often, I think, a really cool trick to use is, well, what do they learn from that? You do learn from failure. That's the truth of life.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because and then you watch the end of that sequence where the party is split up, and it's not necessarily someone could make arguments about which player fails their stealth check and gets knocked out or caught first.
Right.
But there's something about like the getting caught part of it that is a tricky balance from a DM perspective, right? Because players getting caught or arrested or put in prison or something like that can be very, very challenging, but there are ways to do it well, right? And in this case, what I imagine is probably the case is someone lost on a check, was caught, was brought in. It's a dramatic scene. And you have this moment where Edgin is surrounded by like the tentacle creature. He finds his daughter, that amazing sort of like character-based sequence that also leads to them getting caught, and is like trying to persuade his old friend Forge to put them in the arena instead of just killing them, right? And as a DM, you kind of go like, well, that's ridiculous, right? Like, why would I let that happen? If I do that, the players will feel like I am just sort of like letting them do their thing or like pulling my punches essentially, rather than like maybe this does end in a TPK. But there's a great moment there where Edgin, as a bard, uses persuasion, right? Like he's speaking and rolls a persuasion check, tries to get Forge to put them in the arena, and he probably succeeds on the check, right? Forge is not going to do that because of course he wouldn't. That strains believability. But the DM carefully uses that moment as a way to hint at the bad guy of the BBEG, the BBEG of this adventure, which is Seraphina, uses like a hint from her to actually let that persuasion check succeed and let the party keep going by saying like, no, put them in the arena because and like when
and in the DM's mind, maybe that's like, you're gonna win at this because you're actually losing by doing this,
right?
Like, that's maybe the crueler way of putting it, but it's like, it's not a generosity that she's letting them go into this.
No, it's a believable
villainous thing to do because they're gonna face a worse fate if they go in there. She believes than if they die right now.
Right. So it keeps the enemies believable and also lets the players have a moment of going like, oh, I'm putting together the pieces of the adventure. I'm putting together the idea of the spell and the Théans and why she's a red wizard and all that stuff, which is hilarious because they don't do it.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. That's
together.
like the transition to the next part, which is like the funny thing, and accurate to like D&D, which is the party does not pick up on the clues of like the bigger thing that's going on. They succeed at what they were focusing on, which has to do with their character backstory, like the more things of like Chris Pine's daughter character and all of that, and they win. They get everything. They go. And the cool DM thing is that it's like the DM is letting them win.
Right.
But if they go off, then everyone in Neverwinter dies.
Right.
So it's like you do get that choice for real of like, we could win and Neverwinter could lose, or we could go back and risk everything to save everyone. And
that lesson is like, right, like if you have a secret plot that you want your characters to care about, right? Like the lesson there isn't like, stop them from caring about what they care about, and make them and find ways to like make them care about your thing. No, let them do their thing, and build into the world and the story reasons that they will care, right? Like, which makes it an amazing moment because they do, like you're saying, they do succeed. They tell off their friend, the Lord Forge, right? They like reunite with Kira. It's a really beautiful moment. They have all the fucking treasure. They succeed, right? And they're out at sea, and then like the last stinger before the final session is them realizing that a small detail that was mentioned 5 sessions earlier by the DMPC is actually the threat, right? And that threat does tie to everyone's backstory, right? The Emerald Enclave cares about it. Edgin cares about it. They, like, you know what I mean? Like,
you definitely have the moments in the movie where it's like the DM is pulling their hair out, where it's like they have multiple moments of the players being like, but why would Hugh Grant be doing this? Oh well.
So true.
I think that it makes me think of like, I mean, I don't know who said it first, many people have said it, but like really cool pieces of art are not answering questions, they're proposing questions, they're giving you questions. So in this kind of final moment of the thing, the DM's making a great call by not being like, you fucked up, like you should be caring about this. It's it's like, you did it, and that's really important that you did it. You have this other thing. It's up to you whether or not you care about that. Enough.
Right. And you're right, because it's not like, oh, now Théan wizards are flying through the air attacking their ship.
Right.
It's like, you could sail to Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, you're good.
You could leave Neverwinter to be controlled by the Théans, right? Obviously, there's world implications of that, and they know Saz-Tam is a part of that. But, like, you're right. It is just a straight-up choice. You could go be free, rich with everyone you love, or you could go be a hero. And there's a great quote in some storybook that's like, or some book about story that's like, a character is defined by the decisions a human being makes under pressure. Like, the greater the pressure, the deeper the revelation about the character. And in this case, right, like, your character is defined by the choice they make. They make a decision under pressure, and that's what makes them heroes by the end.
Which is the magic of D&D and role-playing games, which is like, you get to, you find out a little bit of who you are playing them. You find out, so even if you're like, which I think is really fun, like playing a character that's very different from you and finding out what they would do. That's just, it's really, you find out a lot about people playing these games.
Prioritize them as a DM. If you prioritize them being able to make the decisions, you find out about who they are, and they find out about who they are, and that,
that's the magic of the game.
And those are kind of our lessons from the D&D movie, from our imaginary DM that we kind of take away from it. Super curious if you have any lessons that you took away from it. Throw them in the comments. Talk with us on the Discord. So excited to kind of have discourse about this.
Yeah, feel free to roast our lip syncs in the comments.
Yes. Oh
We
my, I
look forward
forgot
to
that we
reading
did
them.
that.
We look forward to it. Thank you guys for tuning in.
It's the best.
Love you out there. Please tune in to Please Don't Kill Us when we do our live interactive D&D Thursday nights. You can vote in the chat and change what happens in the game to these players on their journeys. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.